This is a very much work in progress throughout. If you have constructive feedback, we will try and listen to it. If you have unconstructive feedback, we will internalize it. So we're thinking either based off of or based on for the title of this podcast. And basically the gist of it is going to be we both read a story, or in today's case, a play, and then we watched the adaptation of said material. We are going to try and alternate between reading first and watching first, or one of us is going to do one and the other is going to do the other. So in this case, we're doing Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, and the adaptation is Romeo plus Juliet, directed by, what was the name again?
Baz Luhrman?
Baz Luhrman. Doesn't have a long resume, but he's got some pretty good stuff on there.
Yeah.
And in this case, I read first and then watched the movie, and then you watched the movie. And
yes, and read first. Or
read second.
Read second.
We're off to a good start. So yeah, just a brief synopsis. If you haven't read Romeo and Juliet, which if that's the case, I'm pretty sure you skipped high school English at some point.
It's pretty well read.
Widely read.
Yes.
I don't know about well read. So we start off in Verona in Italy, where two households, the Capulets and the Montagues, have been at war for so long they don't know really what started it.
Yeah, it's not really explained.
Yeah, and
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I really wonder what started it though. Like if you found out it was just like miscommunication.
Yeah, like someone broke a basket of eggs or something.
Well, that would make sense.
that would be understandable.
Yeah, that's livelihoods there back in the day. Anyway, so these two households are at war, and the Montagues have a son, Romeo. I'm getting that right. I feel like I always confuse the two. Romeo's a Montague.
Yes.
And one day, him and his cronies decide to crash a Capulet party where he meets Juliet, who is obviously a Capulet, and not knowing who she is, he falls in love with her, and the two devise a plan to get married. And basically, shiz hits the fan from that point on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know the story, they get married, and then Romeo kills a man
who is Juliet's cousin.
Yes, and then he gets banished and
to Mantua,
and Juliet and the Friar
Lawrence.
They devise a plan to get Romeo back, and so they can be together. And through, once again, some miscommunication, Romeo ends up killing himself, and then Juliet kills herself.
And then the two families kind of reconcile in their misery, I guess.
Yes. So,
it's a brief synopsis. You probably read it. You probably know the gist of it.
Yeah.
So I assume you've read, like I said, we've probably read it in high
school. I mean, that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was almost like I hadn't read it before. It had been a long time. And reading things in high school, you rarely do it because you want to.
Yeah, I can think of about 2 books I actually cared about. And they were like the odd ones that I don't know how a teacher got away with letting us read that for their class.
Yeah. But as you read it through this time, you didn't have anything to base it off of because you hadn't watched the movie. Yeah. You knew the story.
Yes.
How did that go?
Well, so I have a little bit of a background with the Renaissance literature stuff. So I didn't have like difficulty reading it, as I assume a lot of people will. language takes a lot of getting used to.
Yes, and it is written in meter as well.
Yeah, iambic pentameter, which to this day I still can't get that rhythm when I'm reading it. But I think we talked about it a little bit before, but I was kind of surprised at how much humor is in the play. Like, most of it's actually really funny.
Yes.
Most of the scenes are
I agree.
fairly humorous from beginning to end, with the exception of like the very last scene and then some of the...
But even some of the fight scenes early on, the wordplay between the characters is witty and kind of funny. When it's understandable. I think some of it is contextual, but it's obviously written very well, and it's pretty humorous, even as they're trying to stab each other.
Yeah.
With swords.
Yeah, I'm going to have a whole thing about swords in a few minutes here. So, just trying to think what... So since you watched the movie first, what surprised you that was in the original play that didn't get translated over into the movie?
The biggest thing for me was the ending.
Yes, the ending is very, very different.
Yes, the ending in the movie is very quick, and there's not a lot of dialogue or much happening after the death of our two love-bound characters. But in the story, it just kept going and going. There's a big...
Like, every character has to have 10 lines explaining why they're there.
And Friar Lawrence goes on it was so long, the paragraph at the end. And basically what it is him summarizing the last few days of what has happened. And I don't know if that was a common thing Shakespeare's time, but at the beginning of the play, you get a synopsis of what's going to happen. And then at the end, you also get a synopsis of what has happened.
And there's a lot of parts in the middle where I'm thinking particularly when they asked Benvolio what happened with Tybalt and Mercutio after they've died. And Benvolio gives you like half a page summary of the last scene that you just watched.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we have moved away from that style of writing. It's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I think if it was done in a story form, they could have put something like Benvolio recounts what he just seen with the fight. But since it's in a play, that would have been a little harder to do. And he had to just recount to Prince
Aeschylus or something.
Yeah. The police officer basically had to recount to him what had just happened.
Yes.
And so we see it once and then hear it again.
That's a good point, because like you said, if it was in a novel, they would just like quickly...
Could do it in a sentence.
A sentence. But back when this was written, novels weren't a thing. You either had poetry or you had plays. And I think plays was a fairly newish thing at the time.
Yeah. Because we're talking like 1500s.
Yeah.
If I 1598? 78? Blake will look that up.
Yes, I will.
It was a long time ago, so they did things differently. And it would have been hard to put an actual novel on the stage. And since they weren't widespread, plays were the best way to get the entertainment out there. But back to your question, the ending was the biggest surprise for me when I saw the movie, how much shorter it was and how much quicker it got done. To just close it off. And I think, I don't know if I'm ready to say I liked the adaptation as a whole more than the play, but I certainly liked the ending of the movie more than the ending of the play. I think the important part, obviously, of the play is the two deaths of the people we care about in the play, and the movie ends right there. And it's much quicker. In the play, again,
you get
like
two more scenes after they die of just people
talking.
Yeah, and not a fan of it.
Yeah, and the whole death scene, I liked more in the movie as well. It just tightened it up and got rid of a lot of superfluous characters and dialogue. Prince, no.
Who are you thinking of? The play was written between
Paris.
1591 and 1595, by the way.
A long time ago. Paris, in the play, is there the night that Romeo and Juliet die. And so he's one of his henchmen, and Romeo has a henchman, and Father Lawrence gets in on that whole scene. It was all very strange in the play, and I liked in the movie they just had Romeo and Juliet, and it was a lot cleaner.
So, having seen the movie first, were you kind of like, why is everyone here when you were reading the...
Mm-hmm.
See, before having watched the movie, some of the stuff that I felt like definitely had to be in there was Paris being at that death scene, because Romeo and Paris have this like final little duel, and Romeo goes on about how he feels for Paris because he understands that Paris loves Juliet as much as he does, and he's going to do him a favor and let him lie next to them. Yeah. Which I felt like that was a very crucial part to the story, but yeah, it's not in the movie. And having taken it out, I can see that you can get away without having that in. Yeah. But I would have argued that it should be in without having seen the movie first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would have felt the same way. But I didn't remember those characters being there anyway. So when I saw the movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is how it happens.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just right on with the play. But as I was reading it, I read it online and I kept scrolling down. I'm like, how is there so much space to scroll down? And it kept going and going. Another part that I was interested to see how they did it in the play, or how Shakespeare did it in the play, was the drug scene that happens early on in the movie.
Where
Romeo
gets what I'm assuming is ecstasy.
Yes, I saw it referred to ecstasy at least once as I was doing a little research. So I think that's what they were going for.
Not that we know.
No, I read it, but
Police
I didn't.
Force that watched this.
Yes.
Anyway,
I couldn't imagine, I couldn't figure out how they were going to do that, or how it was portrayed in the play for them to do drugs in the movie. And so it's interesting to see.
That was a very added bit
Yes.
in the movie. And yeah, I'm not a fan of that particular part. It just felt weird, especially having read the book first and then watching Mercutio pull out a little pill. I was like, what are we doing, guys?
What's happening here?
Yeah, I was very taken aback while that whole scene was happening, and not just because they were spinning the camera around to show how Romeo felt all drugged up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was odd. It was very odd.
Yeah, but it seemed like it helped him at the party.
I
Had
guess.
a good time. I don't know.
Well, I think part of the reason why I didn't like it is it kind of gives this implication that his infatuation with Juliet is purely kind of drug-based at first.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I think he does kind of sober up right before he sees her, but I don't know. It seemed like the drugs played a bigger part than I think you would want them to.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Just get on board with that. Yeah, but other than that, I felt like the movie represented the source material pretty well. It was interesting. I was taken aback. I knew in the movie that there were guns instead of swords. But I was still shocked by the direction they took with the movie as a whole, because of the basic understanding I did have of Romeo and Juliet. So I thought that was an interesting kind of flip in there.
Yeah. So I actually had seen the movie when I was much younger. I think I was 13 at the time. And my big takeaway as a 13-year-old watching that movie was, stop calling them swords. They're guns. Like, you're running around with 9mm. stop saying sword. It bugged me
Yes.
to no end, and that was the only opinion I had about the movie. Again, I was 13, and video games played more
Yes.
emphasis on anything else in my life at that time. But no, I kind of liked it this time, actually. Seeing how they were taking the dialogue straight over into this movie, and with very few changes.
Yes. There were a couple changes.
Outside of like kind of placement, I would say 99% of it is spot on to what you would read in the play.
Yeah. Of the dialogue they actually have in the movie, because there are quite a few little scenes from the play they don't include in the movie.
Or if someone has like 8 lines, they cut it down to 1 or 2.
Yeah, or 30 lines. They cut it down to like 10, which was nice.
Very nice.
Kind of hard to read. But yeah, but of the stuff they have in the play, they do stick really close to the way they spoke.
Yeah,
Play.
yeah.
Which is interesting. Back
Anyway, so we kind of want to do this segue from talking about the source material to talking about the movie. I know we've already talked about the movie a lot, but our idea for the segue is basically we're going to say if we were hypothetically given this project to adapt into a movie, what would you do? So I'm gonna let you start with that question.
Shoot, well, I don't know that I'd even have the idea to change the time period.
So would you just do like the play?
I would probably just do the play.
So what if? I mean, yeah, and there's people who've done that.
Yeah, you watched that one in junior high, high school, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Very famous one, and it's a good movie.
I'm gonna take your word on it.
From what I remember.
It's been a while.
It has. But
okay, so say you were told, hey, modern adaptation of this. I think personally, and you've probably seen someone do a modern adaptation of this. It's not that hard to veil.
Yeah.
Or it's always thinly veiled.
yeah, wasn't Warm Bodies?
Yeah,
Is it
Warm Bodies is
thinly veiled?
kind of, yeah.
Romeo and Juliet spin-off kind of thing.
And see, like with Warm Bodies, it makes, I don't know if you want to say it's a mistake, but it makes the move to focus very heavily on the relationship of Romeo and Juliet, which I know, like, that's a central focus point of it, but it's given just as much weight in the play as this Capulet-Montague feud. And I think a lot of people graze over the feud part to focus on the lovey-dovey. Let's talk about how he compares her to the sun and the moon and stuff.
Yes, they're misassigning the catalyst of everything, and the relationship between the two families, or the feud, is the catalyst to the love. Because if there wasn't an issue with the families, there would just be two pretty young kids falling in love.
Okay, so as I was watching the movie, I had a thought that no one has ever brought up to me before, and it's driving me nuts now. Romeo, when he meets Juliet, doesn't know she's a Capulet until someone tells her, and he's all heartbroken about it. How do these two people not know who the other is? Because
good question.
They're two pretty prominent members in two pretty prominent families, and they both are supposed to hate each other. I feel like just in case of what exactly might happen, I would take my son and be like, see that woman over there? That's a horrible looking woman. Like, convince her that is the most ugly looking woman just to avoid the very situation that happens.
Yes, that's a good point.
Like, it seemed ridiculous to me when I thought of it. I was like, holy crap, how do these two not know each other?
Here would be my one explanation if I had to.
Okay.
She is pretty young, she's 13 or 14.
Okay.
13.
Yeah.
So she may not be out yet in society. That would be my only way to explain it.
Yeah.
And Romeo's not that much older, but clearly he's out and about a bit more. But if she's just now getting into social circles, then maybe that's how.
Okay.
But
that's a good reason, but like it was
he is
driving
at
me
her
nuts.
house at the party.
Exactly.
So it's.
I mean, you must have heard that the Capulets have a young daughter. You don't think the first young woman you meet at their party is her?
Yeah.
Come on, guys. It drove me nuts. It really did. It was just like, how did no one ever point this out? Like,
Yeah. It's a good point. It was 1500s, dog.
yeah.
Oh, anyway, back to the adaptation.
Sorry.
We're going to do it. No, it's
Side note.
Man, if I was going to change the setting and the time, would I have them still speak like it was originally written?
I don't think I would, partially because it makes it less accessible.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were mentioning when you watched the movie that you had to really focus,
yes,
to make sure you understood what they were saying.
Mm-hmm. And I had the captions on as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hadn't read the play first, I think I would have that similar experience. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a bold choice, really. I agree. And kudos on doing it.
Yeah. It is a bold choice, and the director, we mentioned him earlier, Baz Luhrmann, he's not really afraid to kind of take those bold moves. He did Moulin Rouge, as well as Gatsby, The Great Gatsby, and those are both kind of similar in their flashiness and their weirdness and stuff. So he obviously was willing to take the risk, but for me it was easier to read the way they spoke and understand it than it was for me to hear it. And maybe that's because I had to see everything else that was going on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if I had to change time period, I probably would have changed the words as well.
Do you think, I know this is what they do in the movie, and I don't think I would have done it, make the Capulets and Montagues kind of like rival gangs? Because the way they position it in the movie, it works. It's a really good idea, and it makes sense that it would be that way. But I don't think I would jump to that. I think a lot of people, when they adapt it, they focus way too much on the characters you see, and not enough on the idea that there's a huge group of Montagues and there's a huge group of Capulets.
Yeah, it makes it seem more, like you said, like just a couple of gangs and not two prominent houses.
Well, I mean, in other adaptations that you see, it makes it seem like Romeo's the basketball jock or something stupid like that. And for whatever reason, the dads don't talk to each other. Like, that's the adaptation I think too many people would do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, let's go into the adaptation that we watched, which is Romeo plus Juliet.
Just to quickly surmise our hypothetical project, firstly, we would probably just do a straight up adaptation, like one-to-one. Mm-hmm. But if forced to go modern, we definitely wouldn't keep the language. How would you portray the Capulets and Montagues?
Probably just like big, rich, just really rich people in mansions.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, the idea of, after seeing the rival gangs, it kind of seems hard to do it the other way.
Yeah.
So, any other way, really. The rival gangs really worked for me, and I really liked that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Speaking of the movie.
Sorry. One more thing. I'm sorry. We did say to not put too much focus on the title characters. They're important, obviously. Their names are in the title.
Yes.
But put as much focus on the feud that happens.
Yes, the feud is the catalyst.
Yes, exactly.
The love isn't the catalyst.
No.
The love is a result. Well, the forbidden love. The forbidden love is a result of the feud. If there wasn't a feud, it'd just be two young kids that liked each other.
Yeah.
Which, just to remind you, they're like 13 and 15 or something.
Yep.
So they move pretty quick and they get pretty infatuated. As a love story, it's not actually that great. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Which I've recently been thinking, why do they choose this play to teach high school kids? Like, there are much better Shakespeare plays. And I don't get why this one. Especially because there's a lot of sexual innuendo in this one. And
Yes.
I don't know about you, but group of 15-year-olds aren't really great at handling sexual innuendos.
Yeah. It's interesting. And why Shakespeare picked people that were so young. Maybe it was just a product of the time.
I think
People were getting married younger, they were dying younger. A lot of issues, but...
Now, sorry, not to interrupt you again. Let's go into the movie.
Okay, let's talk about the movie. It's Romeo plus Juliet. I never really could see why they chose to do a plus sign and not and.
I think to differentiate, just because this might be me talking out my ass, but like I think a Romeo and Juliet, you instantly assume you're getting a straight adaptation.
Yeah,
and the plus is a little contemporary. Idea.
I'm sure that's it. If that was the biggest change, or the biggest shocker in the film, then it would be a much different film. But we mentioned a few times, Baz Luhrmann is the director. Some big names in the film.
Yeah, I was noticing, to get a cast like this today, you would need it to be a Marvel movie, man.
Yeah, it was quite the cast, and I think they benefited from the fact that it was a lot of these actors and actresses that are very prominent now.
Yeah.
They hadn't done quite as much. Leonardo DiCaprio's in it, who now
plays Romeo, and now.
Yeah, this was the movie right before Titanic, which I think is when he really exploded.
Yeah.
Claire Danes
plays Juliet.
John Leguizamo is Tybalt. Gerald Perrineau, who I recognized but couldn't really place. He plays Mercutio.
He is the pilot of the ship in the second and third Matrix.
Yes.
Nice.
Well done.
After seeing him in this, he needs to be in more stuff.
I agree. His character in the movie was great.
And he's great at it. Like, he's a great actor in this film.
He is.
It's not often that I see a movie and I feel like someone outdid Leonardo DiCaprio because I'm a basic white guy, but he did.
Yeah, he did a great job. For part of the movie, he's just in drag, and he does a great job. It's not in the play, by the way.
Yeah.
It was an interesting decision, but he did a great job. Pete Bostlewaite is Father Lawrence. Paul Sorvino, Brian Dennehy, and then a great one.
Paul Rudd.
Yes, Paul Rudd as Dave Paris, and he does a great job. He
looks like a goober throughout so much of this film, and I realized that that's who Paris is. I didn't pick up on it while reading it, but watching it in the movie, you're like, oh yeah, Paris is a total goober.
Yeah. And then the curveball of all curveballs. Jamie Kennedy is in this movie. So that
second note of the film is that Jamie, Malibu's most wanted Kennedy.
And it was.
It was.
So it's quite the lineup. There are a few other names that you'll recognize when you watch it, or if you have watched it.
Yeah.
But those are the main ones. I mean, and they all do great. Leonardo DiCaprio.
I do have a caveat to the guy that plays Balthazar. Romeo's like right-hand man.
Yeah.
Every single one of his lines, he delivers it with the personality of a cardboard box.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
If this actor sees it, I'm sorry, but
sorry.
I'm not much of a judge on actors, but that one was rough. Every line, I was just like, whoa, go.
Yeah.
That fell flat. Sorry, bud.
Better luck next time, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully.
And we don't really need to give you a synopsis of the movie. It follows the story of the play very closely.
Yeah.
We talked about it in our previous section, but it's very close. They've omitted a few little scenes that don't pertain to the overall plot.
So kind going off of the synopsis, the prologue at the very beginning,
Yes.
because like we did say, the prologue is a synopsis of everything. The movie does something really cool where it starts off with the TV, and you see the news anchor deliver the prologue, and I thought that was really cool. But then it had the Friar's character do a voiceover of the prologue again.
Yes.
And he did the whole prologue twice in a row. Right?
Yeah.
You hear the prologue 3 times, like one right after the other. And I think it took away from that really cool idea of showing the news anchor.
Yeah, like why show the news anchor if you're going to do the voiceover?
And I get it, the Friar Lawrence dude has a really great voice.
He does. And a tidbit I saw about that is he is the only one to speak in iambic pentameter.
Throughout the whole...
Yes, his lines are said in the meter that it was written. All the other people kind of lend to the emotional side of things, pause, and kind of make it a little more conversational.
And give it a little more common vernacular for today.
Yes.
I don't know if vernacular is the right word for meter, but a common meter for today. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, so that's a little tidbit about it. So it's kind of the adaptation, it's kind of a grindhousey, modern-ish.
Yeah, I loved the grindhouse feel.
Yeah.
Which, again, 13-year-old me saw this and didn't know what that was or appreciate it. Seeing it this time, and after having some experience with some of like Tarantino's grindhouse stuff that he's done, it made me I was in love like the first scene at that gas station.
Yeah, and it was interesting the way that they translated things to make it work with guns. For example, I don't remember if it was Mercutio or Tybalt, but Shakespeare wrote that his swordplay was kind of playful. And so that's why, I think it was Tybalt, that's why he's kind of a very eccentric, spins his guns a lot.
He spins it around and
He's
takes like shots behind the back kind of stuff. And
yeah, so that was an interesting translation from playful swords play to guns, which I thought was cool.
So throughout the film, they still call their guns swords or rapiers and all that stuff, but they kind of explain it away by having sword 9mm printed on the side of the gun. So it would be like saying, "Give me my Desert Eagle," or something like that. Nobody would say that, but if that explanation kind of got rid of my 13-year-old opinion of the whole sword gun thing. That I don't know why it hung me up so bad, but
I did have in 9th grade. This movie came out in 96.
I was 4.
Yeah, I was 8. Yeah, I was 8. But in 9th grade, I had an English teacher that brought up the movie, and he said that with it having guns, it makes it a little too real for him, or something like that. That was the basic gist of what he said, where he just saw swords and daggers because it's in the past, and like nobody's killed by swords and daggers now. It was kind of an interesting take. I don't know why I remembered that.
I don't know if I would agree with that, because if we did that 1-to-1 adaptation, I would be the person who would say, let's show that sword getting rammed through Mercutio or Tybalt. Yeah. So I think I would ruin that teacher's explanation. Sorry, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that was a long time ago. I haven't seen him since. But yeah, it was an interesting, kind of eccentric, flashy, wild adaptation to the play. And I think it did it. I think it did it justice. And we talked about there was a drug scene in the movie that wasn't in the book. They tightened up the ending, the play. They tightened up the ending, which I really liked. Got rid of some scenes that while I was reading, it was like, I'm really glad they didn't put this in.
So there's one scene in particular that as I was reading, I was like, there's no way this makes it into the movie. And it's just a bunch of servants right before the huge party at the Capulets talking about music.
Yes.
And yeah,
there was another one at the end, when Juliet and Paris are supposed to get married, and then Juliet's found dead, that the musicians, again, they get in an argument with someone, and it's just like this weird argument. They cut that from the movie as well, which was nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it just had to do with time. You can't make a 4-hour movie. But I don't think they cut anything from the movie that I think was super pivotal. I think it all worked very well.
Yeah.
I don't know your thought on that.
No, in fact, I think the movie made a lot of smart choices in what it cuts, because it actually cuts down on a lot of the exposition.
Yes.
So that opening scene where they have that fight in the gas station, in the play, the prince shows up and he gives this whole kind of background exposition of, you guys have been fighting for forever and blah blah, all this stuff. But they cut to like news footage to explain that, and they do it really quickly, and then it's literally a couple lines, and then let's move on with the story. Show the prince threatening death or exile. That's all you need to know, and let's move on.
Yeah. Exactly. And they did that throughout, and I think it made it a stronger movie and a stronger adaptation.
So I had a lot of notes as I was watching it. One thing, so we've mentioned that they're both really young in the play. That's one of the things they cut out, because I had the play in front of me as I was watching the movie, and I noticed that the line where it comes up where it tells you Juliet's age, her dad skips that only line that says that and just keeps on going. I was like, that was a smart
move.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Well, some people do, but they're not good. Sorry.
And without them saying that, I think people watching it assume that they're older than that.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, even 17, 18, I think is more reasonable. Honestly, you could write this. Well, no, I think they would still have to be at an age that their family still had a lot of say in their life.
Yeah.
So they could be 27.
17, 18 would be a good...
Yeah, when children start getting out in society now.
Yeah.
Which is about 17, 18.
Sometimes that's later.
Yes.
Anyway.
So I think so it was I'm sure it was a conscious choice.
Very much a conscious choice.
And that's probably why.
It was a good, smart, conscious choice.
Yes.
So in the play, it says that these houses are of equal dignity. Basically, like, both of high standing. One change they made, though, I don't know if they were consciously trying to, but when you first meet the Montague boys, which I love, that's how they pause it and they have the little text next to them called the Montague boys, and then when you meet the Capulets, it says the Capulet boys, and I really loved that. But when you meet the Montague boys and then you see the Capulet boys, I felt like the Montagues seemed of a lower class. Yeah. Maybe because Jamie Kennedy has pink hair in it, and I have a hard time taking anyone with pink hair
seriously.
Yeah. Like, dignity is on the other side of the dictionary from people with pink hair.
Yeah.
I might have pissed off some people on that one. I'm sorry.
That's
my bad. Whatever. But yeah, and also the way that they kind of act. The Capulets seem to be more dignified in the movie, and I didn't get the sense that they're of equal
dignity, as they say. Yeah. That's a good point. I got that as well. Especially when they roll up, like, the cars seem nicer.
That was one of the big things, is that their car is a very nice car. I would love to have that car. Whereas the Montagues roll up in some like dune buggy looking thing.
Yeah, and they're dressed differently. One seems more classy and richer, and the other one seems less so in both regards. So yeah, that's an interesting point. An interesting thing to point out. Whereas in the books they should be, or in the play, they should be of equal standing in society.
And so in the play, you mentioned they don't have a lot of stage direction. They don't give you a lot of, this is how that person looks like a modern play would today in their script. And I think that's why that's in the dialogue, is one, as a note to the people watching, but also to the people putting on the play, where it's, you need to make sure that they both come across as respectable people. And yeah, Montagues did not come across that way in that first scene.
No. I just thought of an interesting thing they did at the movie is they actually show Romeo in exile, which is not in the play. They show Romeo gets exiled, and then you don't hear from him again until his man, as they call him, goes and gets him and brings him back to Verona.
So, they kind of show him in exile in the play, because it has the scene of Balthazar showing up to tell him what happened to Juliet in the play, and that seemingly happens in Mantua.
Yeah.
It's spelled Mantua, and I would pronounce that Mantua, or I kept on thinking Manitoba, like that city up north from where we are, but they call it Mantua in the movie, and that's why we keep on hesitantly saying it the way we do. Anyway, so it does have that scene in the play, seemingly in Mantua.
Does the friar's man ever talk to Romeo?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because there's the scene where the friar's man comes to the friar
and tells him, "Hey." Romeo's man Balthazar does get to him.
Yes.
But in the movie, it shows him in exile in he's got like a trailer and it's really dusty and a Mad Max-ish. Not as cool.
Yeah, depressing Mad Max.
Yeah, and then
Sad Max. I hang out with you too much for that pun.
That's pretty good. And they show the mail carrier go out to him several times, and they're not showing so much what's happening with Juliet.
Yes.
They're kind of swapped.
So that scene where the guy shows up with the letter, that is one of the scenes that I have a problem with the movie over the play. Because he knocks on the door, Romeo doesn't answer.
But he's like 10 feet behind the trailer.
He's 10 feet behind the trailer playing baseball with himself.
Yes.
I was they needed a better reason for him to not get the letter.
Yeah.
It's one of the few scenes that I was just like, really?
Come on.
We could come up with something better, guys.
And I did a little research. Mantua is only like 30 miles away from Verona. They talk about it like it's the other side of the planet. In the
Romeo
play.
says as much because he's being all melodramatic. Teenage kid.
I would rather be dead than alive in a different city. Come on, buddy.
It's 30 miles.
Yeah. But in the movie, they kind of depict it as super far away too and vastly different. Like it's a barren wasteland outside of Verona.
Yeah.
Even kind of inside of Verona, it's a little bit barren. But yeah, that was an interesting change.
They had like helicopter shots of Verona. Those shots show you this huge city, but then the actual interactions between characters are on empty streets.
Yeah, and there's like dilapidated buildings and stuff. It's kind of an interesting.
That happens in huge cities.
Yeah, true. So that was kind of an interesting difference between the two, and in reality, it's like a day and a half walk away from each other.
Yeah.
But they were very young, and in those days, you'd lived off of the wealth of your family, pretty much for as many generations as it lasts.
Yeah.
So it was probably a little more drastic than, moving 30 miles away from your parents and just like starting your own life. It was a little different back then. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like, you're not going to Australia, buddy. So, anyway, which did you like more, the play or the movie?
I have to give it to the movie, which we're planning on ending pretty much every episode with this question. I think this is going to be one of the few ones that I give to the movie, and there's two big reasons why. One is the death scene, which, as you pointed out, is much shorter and you don't have 5 expositions after they both die. But on top of that, in the play, after the prince has kind of reprimanded everybody for what just happened, Montague and Capulet, the fathers of both households, are going on about how they're going to build statues of Juliet and forgive each other. And it kind of makes it seem as if it's an all's well that ends well kind of story, even though they're 2 dead kids.
2 dead kids and a dead Paris.
I forgot about Paris again.
Paris is dead. Well, and a dead Tybalt and a dead Mercutio. Like, there's a lot of death. And
those last few lines kind of makes it seem that everything's going to work out. They take that out in the movie, and I liked that they got rid of that. But also in the death scene, Romeo takes the poison, and right as he does, Juliet brushes his cheek. So she watches him die,
and he dies knowing that she's alive
and that he messed up. And that is much more powerful than how they do it in the play, because in the play he kills himself, and then some people talk about some stuff, and then Juliet wakes up.
Yes.
And it just doesn't have the same impact that it does in the movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would I agree fully? I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say the movie was better.
What? Whoa.
There are definitely a lot of parts. It's hard for me to say.
Well, okay, so what about the play is making you hesitant to say that, I guess?
I don't know. And I guess that answers my question.
Yeah.
I can come up with reasons why the movie was better. I can't necessarily come up with reasons why the play was better. Except that it's an original, and I always...
You just have that nostalgia for the 1500s?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't know. I always like to give a huge amount of credit to the original, because I think it's a much harder process to create something than to
adapt.
Maybe,
but in this case,
maybe
so
not.
much changes that you are creating something very original.
It's true. And I just need to get over the fact that somebody could improve on something that was already done.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say, sure. I think the movie was...
If you're still on the fence, I got another reason.
At least tied.
Okay, I'm going to give you a reason to come over to my side and get off the fence.
Let's hear it.
So another reason why I really like the movie is just how movies are able to cut between scenes, and you can't do that in a play, obviously. But in the scene where Romeo is dueling Tybalt, it goes back and forth between them dueling and Juliet talking about how happy she is that she's married to Romeo now and all this great stuff. And it makes all of her lines just seems kind of sad.
Yeah.
Because you see exactly what's happening, and then it goes into the prince banishing Romeo at the same time as it's cutting back and forth between her talking about how everything is perfect in the world because she's with Romeo now. And that back and forth, whereas in the play, you watch everything with Romeo and then you go to Juliet and watch everything with Juliet. And it just doesn't work as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, sold.
Sold?
I like the movie. It's really good. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre,
but it is a good movie, and I think it's an improvement on the play, which is not a knock on the play. The play is done incredibly well, of course.
I mean, it's Shakespeare.
Yeah, so
it's kind of
hard to knock him. There's a reason we're still reading him, a few hundred years after the fact.
So yeah, that's Romeo and Juliet, and Romeo plus Juliet.
Yeah. We
know you've heard it before. The whole comment, share,
like, subscribe,
all that stuff. But like I said at the beginning, constructive criticism. We do want to take it. We do want to see what we can do with this.
Let us know what you liked. Let us know how we can improve,
and
give us suggestions.
Yes, please give us suggestions. We do have a list of a lot of stuff that we want to do. there's some stuff that we aren't too gung-ho about, but
we'll try to do it. We want to cover as much ground genre-wise as we can in both source material and adaptations.
yeah, because I mean, I think a really big, I keep on wanting to say it, and it's a mistake. It's not necessarily a mistake, but I think someone who would similarly do this would stick to doing movies that are a straight adaptation
Yeah.
of the book. This is what we did today was not a straight adaptation, and I think those are going to be a lot more interesting to talk about. And I think we would like to do a lot of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, give us your suggestions on what to do, and we'll take them in consideration.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. I'm cutting that. Just kidding.